This is the ancient city of Syracuse on the island of Sicily, Italy. Hey there, buongiorno, good morning. Today is Wednesday, June 11th, 2025, currently 84 degrees Fahrenheit, that is 29 degrees Celsius, here in Catania. Once again, my last day here. That week really flew by. So, today I'm going to Syracuse, walking to the train station, right there. An hour and 18-minute train ride for about €7 or $8 US. Very fair prices for the trains here and super convenient. I am hoping that the train to Syracuse will drop me right in the town as opposed to Taormina, which I went to 2 days ago. And then the train station was away from the actual town and had to catch a bus. So I suspect that the train will drop me off right in the city. We shall find out, but Syracuse is supposed to be one of the most interesting cities to visit on the island of Sicily here in incredible Italy. So just going to make the most of this last day in Sicily. I have a flight tomorrow, and so a week is really just dipping a toe into how much there is to see on this truly incredible island with so much history, culture, so many places to explore. It is the largest island in the Mediterranean Sea and absolutely jam-packed with various places to visit and experience. So, all right, here we go. Train leaving in about 10 minutes. Let's do it. The journey to Syracuse, not New York. Platform 2, and there is a train on the tracks now, so I guess this is it. Let's double check with the conductor or whatever. Buongiorno, Syracuse? Grazie. All right, so I made it to Syracuse. So far, not looking too impressive, but that will definitely change. So the train delayed just a little bit there. It is now getting close to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I will take a train back late in the afternoon, maybe 5 o'clock, there's one. So before I walk into the main part of the town and go see the island of Ortigia, which is supposed to be very nice. There are beaches there, there's a lot to see, but first there are the amphitheaters. Not sure if there's more than one, if there's a Roman one and a Greek one, or if they're the same amphitheater or what. Anyways, we will figure that out when we get there. And there's something else quite interesting to see there. And so that is away from the sea, and that is where I'm walking now. It is about a 25-minute walk. There were taxis there, could have caught a taxi, but they're just so expensive. I took a taxi from the airport to my guest house in Catania there, and it was 33 euros, like $37 for 15 minutes. And so it could be 20 to 30 euros just to get up there. And I like to walk, so I'm gonna walk there and then figure out how to get back later. So I have to tell a story. It is one that I've told before, but it is highly relevant to why I am here in Syracuse. There is one souvenir that I travel with beyond my necklaces and my shirts and hats and actual useful stuff for traveling. One thing that I travel with that I just travel with for the heck of it. So here it is. A fake ancient coin. So I'm going to tell the story of this coin, how I got it, and how it relates to being here in Syracuse, because you will actually learn a fair amount about the history of this city in the course of telling the story. So back in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, I was traveling in Turkey because, number one, it's one of my favorite countries. Number two, it was one of the places that I could travel at that time. I couldn't come to Europe. And so I was at the ancient ruins of Aspendos. They're in southern Turkey. So there's a very interesting story about Aspendos, which was told on one of the plaques there. Alexander the Great showed up there in the 4th century BC in the course of his conquest of Anatolia, pushing back the Persians and taking over land. And so his army came to Aspendos, and then he sent out, I guess, a messenger or whatever, and he conveyed a message to the people of the city. We can conquer you and kill a bunch of people in the process, or you can surrender and become part of the Alexander the Great Empire, whatever you're calling it at that point, Macedonia or Greece or whatever, and pay us taxes. And they agreed to surrender and pay the taxes and become part of the empire that Alexander the Great was creating. So that is how Alexander the Great operated. He was undefeated in battle. I'm sure that his reputation preceded him. They had heard these stories of his conquering and knew that he was serious when he said, "We're going to conquer you unless you surrender." So one of Alexander the Great's conquests there. So really interesting ruins there. I explore around, and then as I'm about to leave, then I come across these people selling trinkets on a blanket, and there are no coins on the blanket, but this guy, I guess, pulls out of his pocket or something this coin and offers to sell it to me for 20 bucks. And so I take a look at it, and I'm just kind of fascinated, like, whoa, really interesting designs on it. There, a woman, looks like some dolphins, and look at that, I notice Greek written on it. Speaking of Alexander the Great, Greek, Macedonian, spreading the Greek civilization and culture across the world at the time. And so I really like it, and so I buy it from him for 20 bucks. Now, I know very little about coins, and I knew even less at that time. I just had absolutely no idea if it was real or fake. I mean, I was impressed by the metal, the heaviness of it. This wasn't just a, plastic thing. It looks weathered, kind of, And so I just really didn't know at all if it was real or fake. I mean, figured probably fake, but they're ancient coins that are cheap because there's lots of them and they just aren't worth anything for whatever reason. So either way, I figured, okay, 20 bucks, yeah, I'll go for it. So I bought it. And then I was trying to figure out, is it real or fake? And so I posted on Instagram and got some feedback and did some further research. And so this is what I discovered. Yes, it is definitely very, very fake and really obvious if you know anything about ancient coins. But it is a replica of a Syracusean decadrachma. Deca means 10 in Greek. Drachma, the old Greek currency, which they used up until 2000, 1999, 2002, I think. Right around there when they adopted the euro. And so when I came to Greece in 1990, I think this is the way that I need to go. Yes, there we go. Teatro Greco, Greek theater. And so that is why I'm telling this story and explaining this stuff now, because it relates to what we just saw on the sign there, Greek theater. And so I learned that it is a fake coin, a replica of a Syracusean decadrachma. And so looking further into that, then I discover Syracuse is this city on the island of Sicily, and it was Greek. And so the Greeks arrived here on the island of Sicily in the 8th century BC. So there were local native people here. I'm not sure how much conquering happened, battles or whatever. I think they were just kind of indigenous people, not particularly organized, and the Greeks didn't have to do too much, conquering or whatever. I'm not sure about that, but it wasn't an especially advanced culture, from what I understand, that was here before the Greeks. And so the Greeks arrive, and guess where they came from? Naxos. As I showed in my video that I posted yesterday, filmed 2 days ago, then there is a city on the island of Sicily called Naxos, because they came from the island of Naxos in the Aegean Sea of Greece, which I've been to. And so I guess them calling the new city Naxos after their island was similar to, in New York, they called a city Syracuse. Syracuse, New York. Presumably named after Syracuse, Sicily. Probably Italian immigrants founded the city or named it or whatever. And so the Greeks arrived here in the 8th century BC and continued to migrate over here and fully populated Sicily. So they were established here for many centuries. But then the Roman Republic started to gain strength and was taking new territory. Sorry that this isn't the best place to be telling the story with all the noise. I think that is where we're going. But you have to get around the train tracks. And so, finally the Romans start to attack Sicily in the 3rd century BC. And eventually they conquer and take over, and over time then the Greeks leave and it becomes Roman. And then now, of course, Italian. But for 400 or 500 years there, then Sicily was Greek. And so they had coins. Now, this is an obvious fake for a number of reasons, which I learned in the course of doing some research. But it has the same images as a real Syracusean decadrachma, so 10 drachma coin. And so the real coin has the same woman's head and I guess dolphins or other kinds of fish, and then the same image of a chariot being pulled by 4 horses, and I'm not sure what that is down at the bottom, and then the Greek there. So not sure what that says, if it says deca or drachma or something else, but there you go. That is the story. Ever since I got this coin and learned that Syracuse was a real city in Sicily, then I wanted to visit. And so that was a big part of my purpose in coming to Sicily this time, was to visit Syracuse. So you're not seeing much too interesting so far, but it is definitely going to get better. So let's get up to the Greek theater. Icaria con bretelle. Icaria with braces, 1996. So I guess not an ancient statue, but really bizarre. Although there it says Icaria Bronzo 1987. So anyways, very interesting statue there. Biglietteria. So this is the Neopoulos Archaeological Park with, as you're going to see, all kinds of different ruins of the ancient city here. And it looks like this might be the racetrack. I guess we are there. And looking out at the number 2, Ara di Leron. And so there, number 1, Teatro Greco. But there's also Amphitheater Romano, number 3, there. So yes, there are separate Greek and Roman theaters. And look at this place. Man, it is phenomenal. There is a massive cave back there. Whoa. And buildings built right into the cliffs. Man, this place looks incredible. And so we are in. It was 17 euros or about $20 US. You are here. And this is the Roman Amphitheater. So I'm not sure if that is something ancient or modern. I am guessing modern, as I showed the other statue. But perhaps they are representing ancient works. Let's see here. At the edge of the Roman amphitheater, the stage is set for Icaro's entrance into the air. There are only faces dotting the large area with the steps carved into the rock and those tall rings that are no longer there, dismantled by the Spaniards to build the fortifications of the city. Eros is blindfolded, but in reality, the great face leans against the earth and listens to it, so obviously referring to that. And so he sees through the sounds and voices that succeed one another over the centuries and the spaces of the world. So, Icaro, and the other one referenced Icaria. Icaria is a Greek island, and there is a legend associated with it about Icarus. So Icarus attempted to fly, jumped off the cliff with wings made from wax, and as a result of getting higher up in the sky, closer to the sun, then the wax melted and the wings failed, and I guess he fell into the sea, and I'm not sure if he died or was rescued, but anyways, that has been referenced now a couple of times, so not quite sure why here, but perhaps you're getting the sense that there is a whole lot of history here, Greek and Roman. So I guess we can't go down into the amphitheater. That is a shame. We're kind of a long ways from it. Oh, it looks like we get a better view up there. Great. Wow. That is quite a sight. So I'm assuming, again, modern sculptures there, but imagine the gladiatorial games, the crowds, the victories, the defeats, the deaths, the heroes, the roaring crowd. Man, that would just be so freaking absolutely incredible to see in real life, one of the games taking place. In the center of the arena is a large pit opposite where you stand that was originally covered. It could be reached by corridors coming from the south and the west that were later modified and waterproofed, perhaps for aquatic games. Whoa. These underground chambers are very simple when compared to the far more complex ones at the Colosseum, for example. A basalt block with a hole 12 meters from the north entrance may have been part of the workings of stage machinery. The main entrance to the amphitheater was the southern one. On the seating of the east side, we can see two long parallel cart ruts that run north to south. These were created by the wear on the limestone caused by the wheels of carts that followed an old road coming from the north. So in the second Gladiator movie, which I watched, highly recommend it. Loved the first, loved the second. They really did a great job with it. Then they show a gladiatorial naval battle in the Colosseum, and apparently that was real to some extent. Those actually happened. They would fill up the stadium with water and have naval battles. In order to build the amphitheater, a natural rocky outcrop was partially excavated and partially built on to create the ambulacro. The inscriptions on the marble parts of the balustrade indicate the seats of the dignitaries from Syracuse: Statili, Pilati, Sestiani, Sabini, Risciani, etc. And so those are all very Roman-sounding names and date to the late 2nd and 3rd century AD. Of course, Roman amphitheater here. There were 8 entrances from the crypta onto the arena. This is a really unique one. The elliptical shape and the setting. Seeing the tunnels and various entrances and the whatever you call that big pit in the middle. So I haven't seen a single informational sign so far as giving you the basics of the history and what we're looking at. There was the art display signs and then the one at the theater, but it didn't even mention when exactly the theater was first constructed. And here there is nothing, so I'm assuming that this is the racetrack that we saw from up there. Also makes sense that it's a racetrack being right next to the amphitheater. Okay, so there's a whole other section over there. And so here we have some information about what we're looking at here. The old quarry can be seen around the amphitheater. In some places, the vertical walls of the quarry have a series of rectangular votive niches carved in them that originally held pinakes, small images of divinities in stone or terracotta, linked to the cult of the dead of the Hellenistic or Greek period, late 4th to 1st centuries BC. These testify to the use of the area before the construction of the amphitheater, the date of which is still being debated. According to scholars, it dates to the Augustan age, or the Roman Emperor Augustus, as demonstrated by the use of opus reticulatum in some parts of the building, and the inscription that mentions Betellinus, found in the southern part of the monument, that dates from the 1st century BC. In fact, the construction of the amphitheater could be linked to the urban restyling that took place in Syracuse following the deduction of the Augustan colony in 21 BC. So there we go. They're saying likely 1st century BC. We don't know much more about the monument. In 399 AD, Theodosius decreed that gladiator schools should be closed, and the games were definitively stopped in 404 AD under Honorius. It seems clear that the amphitheater continued to be used for other forms of entertainment, but at some stage it was abandoned and dismantled progressively until the spoliation of Charles V to build the fortifications of Syracuse. Teatro Greco, Greek theater, which of course would be older than the Roman, and yet still in use. Looks like they're setting up for an event. How old is this? Maybe Venetian Empire? Just a wild guess. Looks like here we have caves, very similar to many other places in this part of the world. Very likely tombs. Definitely looks like tombs. They have them on the island of Malta, in Matala, Greece, on the island of Crete, of course Turkey, Cappadocia, so in Cappadocia then, many of the caves were also used as homes. I'm not certain about these, but so far they're definitely looking more like tombs. They're pretty basic and have clear spaces carved out for putting coffins. I hear water flowing down there. Whoa, and it looks like this is the source of the water. Wow. It's nice and cool in here. Also very creepy, but it is getting hot out there. So is this a completely natural source of water or something being pumped? No idea, but that looks like an ancient cave there. Maybe there's a spring down there. In which case this could have been an essential part of the survival of the city. That was one of their main water sources. Just fascinating. So here you have the same niches carved into the rock over by the amphitheater. So I guess they were for putting, dedications to the gods, something like that. And then a bit larger cave here. And then another view of the Greek theater, and out there where we're going next, to the modern town of Syracuse, and the sea, and the island of Ortygia. There is still so much more to see. La Tomie del Paradiso. So maybe we can't get close to the ear of Dionysus, that gash in the rock there. But you can see clearly human carved out chunks in the cliff there. Whoa, there's a huge cross on a figure in that cave. And there you can see the buildings that are merged with the cliff. Just fascinating. Yeah, so it's roped off there, but I guess this is the best view into the ear of Dionysus, which I guess has some sort of special acoustic qualities. And look at this absolutely incredible cave. And so they're one of the pieces of art from 2013, Torso Cross in the Salinitro Cave, where for centuries one of the fundamental components for the so-called Greek fire, the mixture used to attack enemies with fire, was extracted. The exhibition places one of its giants, the Torso Cross, in the heart of the Latomia del Paradiso, along an exhibition itinerary that has made it possible to intersect imprisonment and the yearning for freedom, dream and reality. So I was looking at this and thinking, man, it looks carved out, but it's just way too huge. And then read that on the sign, and also, especially here, you can see what looks like scratch marks all along it. So it seems that to some extent, anyways, this was in fact carved out by people. Unreal. I mean, when you look at that, it just does not look natural. Truly mind-blowing. A little room up there. Oh, so this is the ear of Dionysus, not the other one. Orecchio di Dionisio, excellent. Artificial cave with a characteristic sinuous shape which ends with a pointed arch and with particular acoustics ability. Whoa. Oh my god, this is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. It just winds its way back in here. So, I'm seeing those marks again. And so I'm not clear on whether this might have been carved out. I mean, it just seems way too monumental. I mean, that is like looking at a person. That is like more than 100 feet high, it looks like. And yes, the acoustics are wild because I'm hearing all these voices, but there's nobody else back in here right now. Oh, wow. Now I realize you can't see, but just barely emerging from the darkness, I can see there's a huge statue of a head. Alright, so that is going to do it for this video. I decided to break this into 2 different videos because that ended up being such a long tour of the archaeological park here. So now time for me to get over to the modern town, which is also an old town, and it should be very beautiful. So going to look into maybe catching a taxi over there. So more coming from incredible Syracuse, Sicily.